Good to go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Dr. Nerina. I'm a sleep, energy, and resilience expert, a wellness expert. And actually, today I have the pleasure of sitting on the other side of the fence and interviewing while sipping my mushroom coffee, legal, I have to say, my mushroom coffee and chatting to my dear friend, Denise Yeats, on your platform, Denise. But Denise, I think you're amazing. I think you're doing amazing work, and you're about to do an amazing event, and you're very modest, I think, very humble about what you do, and you kind of try and keep yourself a bit under the radar. So I think that I need to kind of like unearth you a little bit and show you to the world. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today because I want people to know who you are, what you do, and I want you to talk about this event and the really, really, really important implications and messages about the work you do, but why you're doing this event, what you stand for. And I'm sitting here in my post gym kit, probably a bit smelly and a bit sweaty still, having been to the gym this morning, but I was doing some strength work. And you've inspired me. I've been exercising for decades, but you've inspired me. But I just love the opportunity to talk to you today and find out who you are and what it is you're going to be doing and why, the why behind it all. So, having said all of that, can I hand over to you, Denise? I'm sure people will know if they follow you who you are, but I think it's worth saying it today.
Thank you. Lovely introduction. And yes, it does make me feel a little bit. It's not a comfortable space for me to talk about myself quite often, but
I know.
I think it is important. And I know from the talks I do and things when I, start to talk about why I do what I do feel quite passionate about it, obviously. So I am a personal trainer and an Ironman triathlon certified coach. But more importantly, I have a real passion and have done the studies behind training during perimenopause and menopause, and pretty much how women should train differently from men. I've done a lot of the studies of Stacey Sims, the exercise physiologist that a lot of people will have heard of, and one of her courses being menopause for athletes. And I think being in that space myself, it makes it particularly relevant. My background is, I wasn't always into sport. I was quite asthmatic as a child, and swimming was always
Mm,
a passion. I know we share that passion for swimming, and that's one of those things that really sort of made me feel I could exercise. And then I moved into doing a bit of triathlon, and it was from doing those things, and then actually, I haven't always been a PT and a coach. A bit of necessity, a bit of passion, a bit of resilience came through during the COVID years, which when we shared some of that time going through the
yeah.
struggle with our businesses.
Yes, that's when we met, in fact, wasn't it?
Exactly. We met at the river. Such was my necessity to get swimming that I travelled across London on my bike to get down to the
Yeah.
river. That's where I met you, which was amazing. Those little serendipitous connections. So always been passionate about swimming, but then I thought, events business, which was my background, was sort of really, pretty much decimated during the pandemic. So I thought
Mm,
maybe I'll sort of help and try and reinvent myself. And really was out of necessity, as I say, that I did a lot of the training to become a triathlon coach, menopause coach, personal trainer, and I know
mm,
you helped me with that as well, doing some of the demonstration videos and things I had to submit. So, but it's become a real passion of mine, as I say, because I realize, the more we look into it, we've all been doing the wrong thing for probably years and years. We
yes.
are different from men. We have different hormonal fluctuations, and
Yeah.
we really have been, 94% of research has historically been done on men around training and
Mm,
women. So
mm,
it's just
mm.
good that this kind of stuff is coming to the fore. So I'm quite passionate about getting that message across and sharing that with women now to make sure that they're working with their physiology and not against it.
Love it. I can't help getting a little bit personal about this. I mean, I have learned. I mean, I'm a physiologist. I'm a neurophysiologist. I've exercised for decades. my postdoctoral work was about the impact of lifestyle interventions and exercise on mental health. But I didn't know enough. And so, when I was exercising a lot intensely, and I was doing, like you, it was a lived experience, that several lived experiences that led me to becoming more and more fit. But I was doing triathlons and marathons and an Ironman and half Ironman. And I didn't realize it, but I got into perimenopause, and I just crashed. And I didn't know, people weren't using labels like low energy availability, or we weren't even talking about perimenopause. And I mean, I'm old, but I'm not that old, So I was training with a South African coach, male coach, and he was brilliant, but we were all training like small men. And I am very small. In fact, he would call me Pocket Rocket. But I just wish that I'd known, because I would probably not be exercising as intensely, but I'd still be doing some of that stuff. I don't run now, and because of a knee problem, but I think a lot of it was because I was running on such low energy and losing my muscle, and I didn't realize that my hormones were raging. But anyway, enough about my side of the story. But this is why I really wanted to talk to you today. And one of the things I loved, apart from meeting you at the river and you joining me in the river, was you got me back into the gym again, because I used to do a lot of strength training, but I'd lost confidence. And I thought, I used to bodybuild. I would be doing 100 key squats and things like that, and I'd lost confidence. But meeting you got me back into the gym again when you were doing your certification, and you needed that guinea pig. Remember that session?
Yeah, I do.
And I was like, oh, and I haven't lost it. It's all there. Anyway, so clearly your work comes from, it's an inside job. It's an inside passion, and now you're taking that work, you've reinvented your business, hats off to you. And I've watched you doing it, and I've watched your business now growing and flourishing. You'll tell us more about what you do in your work, but please, can you just tell us about this event that you're going to be, this UltraQuad event, when you're doing it, what it is, why the hell you're doing it? Go on, go for it.
So yes, why? It's whenever anybody asks me that question, sometimes I question myself, but I do, excuse me, I do think it's important to, as a PT and a coach, to kind of walk the walk as well as talk the talk. There are a lot of people out there that, are good at sort of spinning the story, but don't actually live the experience as well. So I do like to set myself a challenge. With an events background, I'm also a bit of a control freak, so I kind of quite like to have things that I... does that sound familiar?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Bit of a perfectionist, bit of a control freak, and I do like to know that I have sort of, I can control things as much as I can. Of course, the weather is one thing we can't, but yeah. And during the pandemic, again, I think because a lot of events weren't happening, it gave me that kind of inspiration to sort of create some of my own things that I could do in a sort of small space or whatever. So I thought, I'll come on to the whole why, the 24-hour things, a few messages about that. But what the UltraQuad is essentially a 24-hour challenge where I'm going to swim, cycle, run. So it sounds like a triathlon. But the fourth important bit I'm going to add in is the strength element. So how it's going to break down is I'm doing it in sort of chunks of time to sort of help people who are supporting me. But I'm actually going to be doing, roughly speaking, so people might get a bit of a head around this, 1,500 meter swim. So I'm going to be in the Thames at Teddington, where we first met. So swimming in the Thames, I'm going to then do about 1,500 meters there. I'm then going to cycle for about 22K. Then going to run for about 4K. Then I'm going to carry, some people who might have seen my social media posts, Bernardo, who is a grappling dummy for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So he's like a person, a small person. He weighs 45 kilos. And I'm going to carry him for 15 minutes and repeat. So roughly speaking, I'm going to do that for 24 hours. We might get about nine rotations of that in, I think, roughly looking at because I'll have very minimal breaks, just enough to maybe refuel as much as I can on the go. And yeah, so it's all happening down, as I say, Teddington, Kingston area on the 19th and 20th of June. And I am supporting a charity, which we'll come on to. One of the two real reasons why I'm doing it, which we'll come on to.
Well, I mean, what I love about this event, what I love about how you're doing this is that, you know, I loved doing races. I think I was addicted to signing up for an event and then running through the bunting at the end. You know, going through the finishing line. And you know, I just loved the feeling of that, and the support. You know, support of the onlookers, supporters along the way. That was always such a big, you know, all that crowd support and human beings kind of sharing their energy with you, geeing you along. But you are not going to have many supporters there at all. And I can't be there because I'm going to be on a flight to South America to go and visit my mother. And unfortunately, as you know, I've supported all your events so far, and I'm gutted that I can't be there for this one. So you're going to have to really dig deep and really connect with your purpose and your mission and the whole thing of why am I actually doing this? Because there are going to be times during those 24 hours where, you know, you're going to be thinking, what the hell am I doing? And I mean, I'm going to leave you to say more about, you know, the analogy with life. You know, we go through life and we have these times where we just think, I feel really alone with what I'm doing right now. Why am I actually doing this? And we have to dig deep into our deepest reserves and find that sense of purpose and mission, right? So I imagine, and I've seen you doing the previous 24-hour events, and I know that there were times in that when you struggled as well, and I watched you dig deep. So you're no stranger to this. But this one, I think you're going all out on this one, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think adding in the run and the strength element is making it harder on me as well,
Yeah.
because the sort of weight bearing, that sort of side of things. And I think I left running out of my own sort of repertoire over the past few years because of issues with Achilles and things like that, which I now realize in retrospect, like you were saying, were all related to perimenopause. There was a real pattern behind a lot of injuries I was getting. And of course, what I was missing was strength. So if there's two real reasons I'm doing this, to fit into my own sort of, you know, passion, it's about the women should be prioritizing strength. We are naturally endurant, and this is something that a lot of people don't know.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people that are still my age, still doing, you know, endurance events, Ironman events, and still training the same way, and still like doing 5 hour, maybe zone 3 heart rate bike rides, really long runs. And actually, that's not the way. What we're really doing there is basically just training to get slower and slower at the distance stuff. When there's so much science behind why women are more naturally endurance, we've got more type 1 muscle fibers, which are those endurance fibers. Men have proportionally more of the type 2 stuff, which gives them a bit more of the explosive power. What we start to lose as we go through perimenopause and menopause particularly is that strength and power, and that's because of the effect of declining estrogen, as you'll know. So we should be prioritizing strength. Not a lot of people are kind of seem to think they should be like shrinking back and doing a bit easier and not doing the gym stuff like you're doing. So I think I really want to, you know, emphasize the importance of that. We are, our lean muscle mass, even after the age of 30, as women, goes into decline at a rate of between 3 and 8% per decade. So yeah, it's quite sort of sobering. And by the age of 50, it starts to go closer to the 8% per decade range, unless on top of it with strength training. Also, of course, a lot of women will be aware. I hear a lot of my clients now, a lot of older clients coming to me with that eye on a couple of clients have osteoporosis already. A couple of them have been told they have low bone density. And again, our bone density it can go into decline again because the effects of estrogen. And what's it, about 50% of women over the age of 50 will have osteoporosis or have a fracture. And I know that the effect some of those fractures can have, they can be truly like life limiting. So it really is why I'm passionate about, we need to add in the strength element. So there we go, that's me. So I'm demonstrating with the 24 hours that, and we'll come on to how I've trained for this, I don't need to be in those long, drawn out, body sapping sessions. I've totally changed how I trained, and I've really had an emphasis on strength. But the other real sort of passion behind, and I suppose the emotive cause why I'm doing it is, I've been doing a lot of work with carers charities. So at the moment, I'm working with Carers Stepping Out, who are doing a big campaign called the Big Step Out, and this is to raise awareness of the unpaid carers across the UK. And although a census recently cited there's about 5.8 million unpaid carers in the UK.
God.
The real figure is likely to be closer to 10 million, because
Wow.
a lot of people don't identify as a carer because they think they're taking care of
Mm,
family and that's what you do. But actually, these
mm,
people are contributing a huge amount to the economy, saving the
mhm.
economy billions. But at the same time, and I'm also doing work with Carers UK, who highlight a lot of this and do a lot of the campaigning around this. At the same time, though, a lot of these people obviously are deprioritizing their own self-care. And
Yeah.
for carers stepping out, for example, they organise these well-being walks across the country, which are so beneficial to help people who are carers, and if they want, those they care for, to get out into the open, get some exercise in, and also get that personal connection, which, as we know, and we spoke about COVID, is
Mm,
a real problem for a lot of people. And if you're a carer, it can be quite an isolating experience. So I thought the 24-hour thing really resonated, because a carer is it's 24/7, whereas I'm get one day of 24 hours and then it's done.
yeah. Yeah. But gosh, I hadn't realized almost, that the numbers of carers. I mean, it's astonishing. So, yeah, I mean, I love that. And so I think you're probably going to be digging into that. That's going to be one of your important whys, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um, what-
definitely. Because I
it's
mean,
throughout the 24 hours. Yeah.
exactly. I think you have to, when, as we know, I mean, I think as women, we are, I don't know, are there stats around this? I think we're quite mentally resilient. I don't know if there are stats to show that we're more
Mm,
mentally resilient than men, although we do manage to do really well in distance and endurance challenges for that reason, a lot of people think. But I think you do need to have something else that is, the going gets tough, as they say. And I've got a good friend in Aberdeen who cares for her adult daughter, and I just see, the resilience there, and I think, right,
mm,
this is something
mm,
I only have to do for a day. So
mm,
yeah, that's going to be
mm.
my motivation.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I am heading out to South America, which is why I can't support you for your 2 days. I'm going to see my 88-year-old mother, and she has Alzheimer's. But one of the things I really prioritize, and I'm already thinking about from now, is what the strength training I'll be doing at the gym in town, the gym I go to a few times a week while I'm out there, because there's something about strength training as well. Because I know from doing, and I used to train for marathons, and you go out and you do those long runs and you come back and you're absolutely exhausted. But I love that, I can come away from these strength training sessions, and you've taught me a lot about that as well. And I just feel invigorated and I feel really good for that. I don't feel exhausted. So can you say something about that kind of that mental boost, that mental health boost? Can I say it like that? Mental health boost that you get from going to the gym and pushing heavy weights. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, because getting into the practicality, because I see so many women in gyms just going in there and desperately trying to lose weight, especially as they go into perimenopause and menopause, and all of a sudden they've noticed they're getting this belly fat, and they're doing all this stamina work, all this endurance work on the cardio machines, or busting out low weight high reps, and it's kind of exhausting them, and they're not losing any weight. Whereas this thing, and Stacey Sims' work, of course, Stacey Sims has done some amazing work setting the scene for this, the stage. And you're passionate about this as well, heavy weights, strength training. Can you say a bit about that, and the mental health, and the impact on the brain, and why it's important, particularly in these perimenopausal or postmenopausal years?
Sure. Yeah, a lot in there, but I'm glad you asked. It's I
Mm.
think this is the message I try and get across to people, that there's a mixture of people I work with. Some people like yourself have done a lot of exercise throughout their life, so that's the way they've got into the mode of thinking more is better, and they just equate
Yeah.
that kind of the longer they spend in the gym or the more they spend on a run. And actually, a lot of the time that's working against us, and particularly as we go through perimenopause, because we can tend to be more have more cortisol circulating, and if you stay in these higher heart rate zones, like especially a mid zone where it's too hard to be easy and too easy to be hard, you're actually just the cortisol isn't getting a chance to sort of like die
Mm.
back, relax back down. So you need to be more polarizing what you do. So if you're going to be going to the gym, you'd be better, and you like running or you like running outside, you'd be better to do sprint intervals of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds or a minute off. And that allows you to get to that spike, and then recover again, rather than these long endurance runs, as you said yourself, if you're feeling exhausted. So if we look at that side of the things and how the cardio aspect works, because people just think it's all about cardio, well, that's an efficient way to get your cardio work in. It's doing sprint or hit intervals and getting those recoveries in.
Mhm.
People then likewise might think, "Oh, I'm going to the gym," and we've seen them, we've all seen them, and we've seen things like body pump classes. I don't want to get sued by Les Mills, but
I know. No, but please say this. I know what you're going to say. I want you to say it.
and I just think and I was
Mm.
talking to somebody this morning at the swimming club about it, sort of saying, and she said, "Well, I've got these things, so I just think if I can do three," and she's literally doing this, if I can do these, bicep curls, I can do like 20 plus, or do them until like failure, that's really good. And I
Mm.
said, "Well, no, it's not. That's actually something completely different. That is in like working towards muscle fatigue and endurance, muscle endurance. Actually, you want to be working in strength mode, which is low
Yeah.
reps, high weights, and you're looking at about 6 reps of something
Yes.
you can do." And I know that's also, sort of subjective, because what is, for somebody doing 6 press ups, well, that's body weight. So that's their sort of strength
Mm.
range, and that's great. Or somebody could, you don't need to go to a gym, you could have a rucksack with some weights in it. And if you can do 6 squats with that rucksack on, and that is, the maximum you could get out, or even less than that, even if you could do 1 rep, that's a great range to be in. It's not that. And I think and so women are experiencing this, and inevitably, and I say it all the time, saying, yes, I've got belly fat. There's a lot of like insulin resistance coming in, with the way our hormones
Mm.
are changing. You're actually just a lot of the time exacerbating it. You are doing more and more, and in
Yeah.
the wrong heart rate zones, and getting worse results. I like to point out as well that this isn't, strictly speaking, just relevant to women. There's a lot of science coming through with marathon runners, and some of the top
Interesting.
male marathon runners spend, what is it, about 80% of their time in heart rate zones 1 or 2. So if they're doing their long runs,
Mm.
they're in those really low heart rate zones.
Mm.
And the other time is spent in doing these hit sprint type intervals,
Mm.
and just being more
Yeah.
effective about things. So so if we talk about, you know, um, endurance, you could use those lower weights. If you were doing a hit session, for example, you could have lower weights and you're doing
Mhm.
30
Mhm.
seconds on, 30 seconds off, and it's getting your heart
Mhm.
rate up to an extent. So, or press ups for 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. That's where you could do that kind of, weight training, if you like, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And what I love about this as well is that and I love a lot about this, which is why I keep saying what I love about this, because it's such an important subject, because we're seeing something really interesting happening in the world where we are living longer.
Mm.
The longevity curve, it's all changing. We're living longer, but are we living better? I'm going out to visit my mother, and she's bedridden, and she has been for quite a long time. I don't want to go that way. And a lot of
Mhm.
my cousins, a lot of my relatives are, the American ones, the great American diet.
Yeah.
And there are many of my cousins younger than me, but they've died, or extremely obese, extremely unhealthy. So we're living longer, and the health system is keeping us alive for longer, but we're not necessarily living better. What I'm also seeing in the corporate world is that, menopause has now it's center stage. People are talking about menopause finally and how to navigate it. So the women's role in the corporate world is changing. We're not hitting the glass ceiling. So we can forge ahead in ways that we couldn't before, but we want to be able to stay well and to stay strong and not be limited by the inevitable hormonal changes and those sandwich years, those life stages, which can bring the pressures of, children and parents growing down and children growing up. But we want to be able to stay strong and resilient.
Yeah.
And resilience that's such an important part of this, isn't it? And so
Yeah.
what you're doing as a coach, what you're teaching from your lived experience is it's kind of it's you're modeling resilience, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think to come back, because I realized I didn't answer the bit about the mental resilience, I think that if people can look at this and look at the importance of strength training, and as you said, what, with an eye on the long game, what are we actually training for? And I think we've used this phrase a few times, fit for life. You're not training, we're not all training for an event, a 24-hour challenge, a triathlon or a park run. A lot of clients that come to me say exactly what you've said. These might be women in their 60s saying, I've seen the way my family have gone. I've seen the osteoporosis in my family. I've seen type 2 diabetes. I don't want to go that way. So, and what do you want to be able to, get out of a chair when you're older, get off the floor, fall over, or more importantly, have a bit of balance and control so you're hopefully not falling over. But I think if you can have the mental side of why you're doing it and also start to approach strength training in the same way if you did train in running or whatever you've done in your background, in the same way, because a lot of people are so driven by metrics and, oh, I'm on Strava and I've done this distance or I've done this pace. I see now, I'm trying to coach women to say, get the same mental confidence and boost that you get from that, from increasing the weight you're doing, building your strength, seeing and you see people's body shape change, just kind of like leaner, holding on to that lean muscle mass and that bone density. So, resilience.
So,
And I think that makes us more resilient in our everyday life if we think we can do the hard stuff. And there's just one other thing I want to say on that, because I think
please do go for it. Yeah.
I'm on a roll. I don't know if you've heard this, because obviously with your background, there's interesting science about if we do hard things. Now, I know we'll come on to it's not about doing hard stuff all the time, but is it the anterior mid-cingulate cortex? It gets activated. So if we do something hard that we don't necessarily like, and I always use the analogy of our passion, which isn't for everyone. We like getting in cold water and that. But if you really don't like it and you think, but that's actually a good thing, because research has shown that that's activating this part of the brain, which has been shown to be activated in what they call super agers. So people who have aged well, don't have Alzheimer's and some of these conditions, they have done hard things that they don't like. and again, safely, but within a controlled environment without their lives.
Brilliant. So when I'm dreading doing my deadlift session, although I have to say I do like doing my deadlift sessions. I do enjoy them, and I do enjoy so I do quite like doing hard things, but I think getting in the cold water gets me every time. And yesterday, I was shrieking, but then, I didn't get an ice cream brain. But this year I really want to keep going through winter. I didn't last, and I've had more inflammatory issues this year, I've noticed. So back in there doing the hard stuff.
I wanted to ask you a question on when we spoke about gyms and you getting back into gyms. Because something I hear a lot of people saying is, oh, I don't like going to gyms. And as I say, there are ways that you can do this stuff outside of a gym. But were there any barriers for you, and how did you overcome them? Because it can be quite a male and it can be quite an intimidating environment.
Oh, thank you for asking that question. It was very emotional for me, actually, going back to the gym, because just in short, because don't try and wheedle out of this is about you, because I want to talk about your training schedule, the days when you don't want to train and it's raining and you're going to be running up a hill with Bernardo, and don't worry, we're talking about that, and also downtime, because as a sleep expert. So hang on, I'm just going to top up. I'm not drinking more coffee, by the way. This is now on the hot water. So going back to the gym, because I used to do a lot of exercise in my 20s. So it was a bit of a mental health journey. But I discovered the power of exercise, and I discovered that I was really strong. And it's probably as a child, I was climbing trees. I think I've inherited my father's kind of stature, so always got a lot of upper body strength. And so I was training pretty hard with those guys. Can I shamelessly name drop?
Come on.
Okay, right said Fred and Richard Fairbrass. We would hang out at the dance attic in Putney, and we'd be doing the heavy weights. And I'm only 5'2". Okay, truth be told, I think I'm 5'1" these days. But anyway, 5'1" or 2, around 52, 53 kilos, small, probably even smaller than thinner. But I was determined to be strong, really big. And I think that set the foundations actually for all of the endurance stuff I ended up doing, all the marathons and triathlons and things. So thank goodness I did that, and all the dance as well. So that made the foundation strong. But I was very confident in the gym. And then fast forwarding 30 odd years to think about going to the gym, I'd climbed, I'd all the triathlons and things, but I hadn't been in the gym. And going back there, I think my feeling was that it would be people who looked a certain way, and I wouldn't even understand the machines. I really felt like a lot of my strength I wouldn't have my strength anymore, especially during the pandemic, because I wasn't able to go climbing as well. So I was climbing trees and things like that, but I wasn't doing the hard climbing and strength stuff that I was doing at the climbing wall. So I just didn't think I didn't think I would fit in. I really lost confidence. I thought I'd be really weak. And actually, I discovered that I could still do pull-ups, still pull up my body weight. I could do bust out reps of that. I still discovered that the strength was in there for doing macro exercises, 5 reps only exercises. And also, I like the gym that I go to. It's not a poser gym. It's a community gym. It's rustic. It's actually probably downright dirty sometimes, but it's got a nice vibe. It's down to earth. But I think just going back in there and discovering that I could do things and I could have fun.
Yeah, I think that's it. Make it something that you enjoy. I think there's a lot to be said when people feel, and I can see in the gym I go to, there's always that area, isn't there? There's the area with the free weights, which always seems like a lot of women think that's not the area for me. And it's kind of slightly depressingly, I remember reading something where, and it might be based on America, but I'm sure it's the same here. If you're to sign up to go to a gym as a new member, quite often you'll get a male person that will meet you at the desk. And when they give the show around, they will show you the cardio machines and maybe some fixed weight machines. They don't. Whereas if you're a guy coming in, they tend to be like, "Oh, right, come on over to the free weights area." And I think that's just, I think more gyms are starting to get people on side and doing a lot of like plans. There's a company called the Well HQ that are starting to train a lot of trainers in gyms, because this isn't, that's not the message you want, is it? To sort of say you are. You're too weak to go to that space. We should be being able to take up space in all areas of the gym. But so it's I think it is taking sort of small steps. And like you did, you sort of think I'll go in and I'll do a sort of program that I can maybe do bits of, and I'll just start small, do something like that. But I'm glad you've got back into it and embracing it.
I am embracing it and loving it. And I have sessions. There are times when I think 100% of the time, even if I don't want to go, I'll come away having had a positive experience. Always having had a positive experience. But anyway, let's talk about. Look, I'm a sleep expert. I'm a rest expert, and so I really want to talk about recovery. And that you must have times when you wake up, you're exhausted. You're not just physically exhausted, you might be a bit emotionally, mentally a bit fried as well. And how do you get through that? How do you make yourself go? Or do you ever have days where you just go, today I need to be kinder to myself? I also want to talk about recovery during the actual UltraQuad, during that 24 hours. I know that I used to do all sorts of mind games when I was doing long events, and I would think about, so for example, if I was doing a marathon and I knew I was aiming to do sub 4, how will I get some form of recovery during that time? Of course, there's a lot now research around, run walking, isn't there?
Yeah.
But can we talk about, first of all, being disciplined, being driven, and when it can tip into harmful pushing through.
Yeah, yeah, and I know that I think sometimes when you sort of hear from me, you probably wonder if I ever do have a doubt, a day off, but I do always prioritize at least one full day off a week. But I'm definitely changing, and as I was saying, the way I train, the way I recover, going back to the thing about not doing those long. I don't get the same joy out of. I mean, for many reasons, cycling out for 5 hours in the countryside. The roads around here are terrible for a start,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
also it's just it can feel like a grind, and you don't feel great after it. You can sometimes be pushing yourself in the wrong heart rate zone. So maybe I'm quite lucky, maybe it's just because of what I've learned. I know that I get better benefits, and I think people in general do if we get our exercise done earlier in the day. So I
mhm,
do get quite disciplined about that. Some of my swimming training, of course, is driven by the fact it has to be done by 9:30 because I do it in the Serpentine, and that's our
yeah,
cut-off. So,
yeah,
but there are definitely days. There's days of bad weather. There's days when I don't feel, and I'm still years later going through perimenopause. My hormones can fluctuate quite a lot. I have those days when I think, no, this doesn't feel good for me. I do track that stuff. I use an app called Wild AI, and which takes objective and subjective data, so you can kind of build a picture and think whether you are ready. But your own best gauge is yourself. I'm a
yeah,
big advocate for not, and I work with a lot of women who have stressful jobs, people in the emergency services, but I think all of our jobs have become more stressful. And your body can't differentiate between exercise stress and work
yeah,
stress. And so
yeah,
it's important to not, and I always say this to my clients, so I have to say it back to myself, don't layer stress upon stress. If you're feeling exhausted because you've had a hard week at work, you're having a rough day, then you'll do yourself more harm than good if you go and do that session. That
mm,
said, it's getting the balance sometimes of when you know it'll make you feel better. And this is where the sort of shorter structured training comes in, I think, because I have changed, I say, the way I'm training. My runs will be more likely to be maybe 6 1-minute hill reps with a 3-minute recovery in between. Similar on the bike. So I've done a session within half an hour. And I think if
yeah,
I could go out, and I do say this to most of my clients as well, under promise and over deliver, if I feel like, oh, I don't know, and if I get out there and, like, one day, for example, I was having stomach cramps after one rep and I thought, sack it off, this is not going to work. But other times I've gone out and I've thought, well, I'll see if I can do 2 or 3. And 9 times out of 10, I've then done that and I've thought, no, actually, I feel okay. I feel fine and I feel good for it
mm,
afterwards. It's
mm,
definitely getting the balance though. And as I say, always have one full day off. But my sessions are never, same with the strength training session in the gym. It's like 40 minutes max. It's not about spending hours in these places and seeing how much you can do. So being a lot smarter about the way we train. And as I say, I think knowing how, well, our cortisol tends to peak, doesn't it? You probably know more about this than I do. In the morning when we're getting up, it's getting us out of bed.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
always think work with that, because by the end of the day, I just think life has got in the way. I've maybe start to feel a bit like, and we should be unwinding as we go towards bedtime
mm,
in your area.
mm, mm,
This is not the time to be going, oh, I haven't done that session. I'm going to go out and do a hit interval session at 7 o'clock at night. My sleep's going to be terrible.
uh-uh,
Just don't
yeah,
do it. So, yeah, I think I'm definitely getting better at kind of managing that. And it's something always say to my clients, just kind of give yourself a break. You'll do yourself more harm than good if you are tired.
mm,
You're not going to
mm,
get the best out of the session. You're not going to feel good mentally or physically, and start to get better at doing things like yin yoga. I have started to embrace recently,
mhm,
and I
mhm.
feel the benefit when I've done that. Now do that at the end of the day, and you're going to have a better sleep, as you will know. So
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, having worked with some professional athletes, notably Chelsea Football Club, and sometimes they would be training late or even uh, competing, doing a match in the evening, and then have to sleep. And I recommend a 10-minute yoga routine, yin yoga, which is going from legs up the wall or legs over elevated over the side of the bed or a sofa for 3 minutes or so, lying, breathing in that posture, and then into child's pose. and then into corpse pose. Just those 3 postures, just to decompress the nervous system. And it really does work, because occasionally I'll do a climbing session in the evening, where they have the climbing socials, and then it can get a little competitive, and then having to decompress, get home at about 8:30 and being able to sleep after that. But I really agree with you, exercising earlier in the day. I think that for me, and I wonder if you see this with any of your clients, that I have shifted though. I used to be very early in the morning exercising. Now I've noticed it's a little bit more like mid-morning, and that can shift with hormones as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's, and likewise, I used to be super early. I used to go to some cycling sessions that started at 6, so I
Yeah.
had to start before
Yes.
5 in the morning.
Similar. Yeah.
And it's, but I think what can often happen then is people don't feel like, and this is a whole other area, but don't feel like eating before it. And it's so important that we shouldn't really be training fasted. So it is, yeah. And I agree. If you've got I guess it's the luxury of time, isn't it? If you can, or you can change your schedule and you can exercise a little bit later, then that can be beneficial, definitely, for people who feel, oh no, I'm just not up and ready to go for it in the morning. I think Stacey Sims did actually give a good little tip, like a protein coffee, because I think even for all of her talk about not training fasted and the science behind why women shouldn't be doing it, she is not somebody that likes eating before
I
exercise.
know.
So she sort of protein coffee, which is straightforward protein powder, milk, thing in a coffee, and you think, yeah, that's a way to get around it. But I agree. I think, and again, like, the whole messaging we've been saying, you don't want to be pushing yourself out the door super early to get it in if you've then got a busy day ahead of work. So it's definitely finding the balance.
I mean, I know that the focus of our chat today is not to talk about nutrition and things like that, but people can, when you give your corporate presentations and when you work with your clients, you really guide them, advise them on the nutritional side of things as well, because I know even though I know what I should know a lot of the time what I'm doing. And in fact, I had a little experiment with fasting a while ago, and almost went slightly mad in the process. So definitely not doing that morning fasting anymore, especially not training fasted as well. But nutrition is such an important part of recovery, and I imagine that you're going to be being a little bit of you said it, control freak, perfectionist. I imagine you're going to nail it on the nutrition for your UltraQuad, aren't you? Have you got that all lined up in terms of what you're going to be eating? That will be a part of your recovery, won't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's, I'm just laughing to myself thinking about all the little bags and things I've ordered and stuff of like, we all have our own little things we like to sort of, but it's important to eat something that you're going to like look forward to eating as well, not just forcing something down. So I would definitely have to prioritize that, because we will just burn out. But I was looking to you, which actually as well, for some little tips on 24 hours. So although I'm sounding like I'm contradicting myself here, because we shouldn't be pushing through, and we shouldn't be just, we're all about, we're endurance, inherently endurance. So it might sound like a contradiction that I'm even doing this, but I just want to showcase this is a one-off, and that I can do on the types of training I've been doing, and anyone can. But as the expert you are, how could I, with my little 10-minute breaks throughout the maximum 20-minute I might have 3 times during the day, what's the best thing I can do to recover without sleeping?
Yeah, I think, thank you for asking that. Recovery, so important. So let's just do a little 2-minute on the physiology of energy management. So that's a 24-hour event you're doing. That's your entire circadian cycle, although some would say it's more like 23 to 25 hours. That is, you're basically following roughly the circadian rhythm. We expend energy, we recover energy in sleep. I'll be doing a version of that as I travel 5 hours time zone, 5 hours time difference behind as I go to South America. But of course, I'm not going to be my issue is going to be to not sit too much, actually. And I'm already thinking, I don't want to look like a crazy person, but I'm going to be walking a lot on that flight. I don't know if I'll get 10,000 steps, but I'm going to aim for it. Anyway, within the 24-hour clock, you have these shorter cycles of about 90 minutes called the ultradian cycle. It's the pulse of your energy, the hum of your energy. Now, you might have a good idea of the hum of your energy in your daily cycle. So we sleep in these in 90-minute cycles as well. So this means throughout the day, throughout 24 hours, our energy fluctuates on this up and down, and that continues through the night as well. And so you know a bit about the pulse of your energy. You know that you don't like exercising super early like you used to do, 6 a.m., 5 a.m. bike rides. I remember I used to do those as well. But you like to go a little bit later. I like to go a little bit later than that, around 11. But we tend to know energy. I tend to be good then. I tend to be mentally a little more tired then. A lot of people will know they can get a little tired in the afternoon. But you're working against all of those rhythms because you're just going to be going. But you're not just going. You're actually intermittently recovering with 20-minute breaks. And so this is going to be really important because I know you do a lot of corporate work. And so how powerful is it going to be to go into those corporate environments and talk about what you did in a 24-hour period to build 20-minute recovery, and yet to be really creative about getting your 20-minute recovery. So we get our energy not just from what we eat or how we sleep, you know, and you're going to be thinking about lack of sleep because it took 24 hours, but we also get our energy from how we breathe and our hydration, and also our emotional energy and our mental energy and our spiritual or our why energy. So I'm kind of drawing a pyramid here. So our energy is what you'll turn up with on the 19th of June is the summation of all of those energies: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. So when you start exercising, when you start doing your event, you've got to, on those 20-minute breaks, you can dip into a pick and mix of different types of energies. Where can I get my energy? Something physical? I'm going to drink something. I'm going to drink something technical. Hydration is going to have electrolytes in it. Or I'm going to eat something. Or my energy is really low. I'm going to eat something that I really like. Not just eat functionally, but this is where I'm going to really look forward to what I'm eating. So it brings a bit of emotional joy into it as well. Or if you're really feeling down, you might choose to put your thoughts into, let's go to the top of the pyramid. Why am I doing this? And thinking about those 10 million plus carers, people who are not being paid, not being acknowledged, but they are selflessly giving of themselves. And you tap into your why. Go, this is why I am doing this. This is why I'm doing this. You might even tap into the why of, gosh, I used to have asthma. I used to think I'd never be able to. Look at me now. Look what I can do. Look at the power of my breath. So you might want to celebrate in a 20-minute break, sitting there, because you will allow yourself to sit sometimes, won't you?
Yeah.
Take your shoes off, put your feet on the ground, earth yourself, ground yourself, breathe, celebrate those delicious breaths coming in, going out, and really work on, because I remember when I was running marathons, I would chant mantras, I would work on my breathing, I would think about my late sister encouraging me along. So there's all sorts of games that you can play and strategies that you can use, which range from physical things to more emotional, mental, spiritual. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And while you were saying that as well, I was thinking, I almost felt a little bit like sort of selfish that I'm sort of asked, you know, thinking about this for this one day. And you know, we mentioned the carers as well. I'm putting you on the spot with this one completely, but for somebody who has got that kind of 24/7 type of work, would it be similar to them? How would they manage sort of
Yeah.
well-being and recovery throughout their sort of caring journey?
I interestingly, and I was thinking this as you were introducing at the beginning, that we should do something together for the carers, because I used to do a lot of programs on preventing burnout in the caring profession, and there is something called emotional labor. So people who will be attracted to the caring profession will probably be quite sensitive, empathic human beings, and the danger of being very empathic, and I am myself, I can be very sensitive. I walk into spaces and I feel the room, I read the room emotionally, and I pick up on the energy, and it makes me good at the work that I do, because I can give them you know, the people who are listening to me, I can give them what they need, you know. And I did a lot of work with the Haven when it was still around, part of the Prince's Trust, women recovering from cancer. And I would walk into that room and I would feel the emotions and the worry and the fear and the sadness in the room. And I would give them what they needed to help reassure them, and the compassion. But you have to really look after yourself. And I often, when I work with carers, I talk about putting your oxygen mask on, you know, and look from the small things like start your day with breakfast. Don't be living on caffeine and sugary snacks and biscuits. And I remember when I've worked with carers in the past, you know, often they'll be gifted boxes of cakes and biscuits and things and chocolates, and that's really yummy. It's nice, but don't be loading up on that throughout the day. Make sure you're eating properly. Make sure you need to look after yourself as if you are an athlete in many respects. And you need to have good emotional hygiene, letting go of it at the end of the day. And you'll probably have a bit of that coming up for you during this UltraQuad, where you'll be thinking, those gremlins will bubble up. And you'll be thinking, can I really, you know, it's like mile 18 of a marathon. That's when the marathon starts.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know when I used to train, I'd train for that kind of mental pain that you'd be going into. I don't really know if I want to do this. I think I want to stop. I know. So just answering your question about the carers, though, self-care becomes even more important. You know, getting good sleep, getting breaks, taking breaks during the day, nourishing yourself with good food, with the right liquids, not relying on caffeine to bring you up, alcohol to bring you down, having good support around you. And I know that on the day, even though I won't be there, there'll be other people like our dear friend Louisa, your lovely partner will be there, and there'll be people who will be geeing you along, the people who love you and know that you're doing this and why you're doing this, and just tapping into that energy. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, it does. I think that's very sort of good practical advice for somebody who does have maybe more of a relentless sort of journey with it. Yeah, how you kind of have to prioritize self-care. And I suppose that's one of the things that, you know, carers stepping out is doing, where they're trying to encourage people to give themselves that break in nature and be support themselves. Outside, I think we both know the power of being outside as well. That's one thing I can tap into with my challenge. I'm outside the whole time.
Yes, absolutely. You'll be outside, and also not just outside, but you know, you're not going to be outside in running through a town in Grimsby or something like. Sorry, listener, to your fans in Grimsby, I'm sure it's a lovely place. I've been to Grimsby once when I spoke at a dentist symposium. Lovely place. But you'll be in the leafy suburbs of Surrey, in the river, and in Richmond Park and that sort of thing. So it will be, you can drink in nature and gratitude practice. You know, when the going gets tough, you know, the research shows, and brain scan research as well, shows that just putting yourself into the thought, that the kind of mental thought process of feeling grateful and doing this for a minute or so can actually change your brainwave activity and heart rate variability, heart coherence. During those 20-minute breaks, you know, I'm sure you might be, as the time wears on, maybe getting smellier and smellier, but I'm sure that your lovely partner won't mind hugging it out with you for a bit. And the power of hugging and the little oxytocin boost that you'll get, and a bit of psychogenic lacrimation if you need to.
Oh, I think I know what this is, but yes, tell me.
You need to have a cry. So if you've noticed you're coming in, so you'll have done the end of one of those 9 reps will be Bernardo, won't it?
That's it. Yeah, my friend Bernardo. Yes.
So you're chugging along with Bernardo on your back and you're, oh, I don't do this anymore. So don't think, right, I've got to bish, bash, bosh through it. You know, if you're starting to get emotional about it, you're in your mile 18 of the marathon kind of thing. You know, when you dump Bernardo and just launch yourself onto your boyfriend and give him a good hug. Not in that way, Denise, but give him a good hug. Give him a good hug. Have a little cry if you have to. Oh my goodness. But don't carry that on your back. I used to have a South African coach who would say, if you're going to cry, Nerina, because you know I like a good cry, Denise, don't you? If you're going to cry before you get on the track, Nerina. Don't bring your bricks to the track. I mean, he was quite hard, actually, I have to say. But the power of crying, and then you pick yourself up again. And I think this is also something relevant for your carers, and it's relevant for us women. I think it's relevant for everyone, you know, even men, who we all have a female side, but we can be so hard on ourselves. And one of the things I noticed going through menopause and perimenopause and postmenopausal is I cry more. And I haven't always been a good crier, but I am now very much more aware of my emotional depth.
Yeah,
you're right, pain in the backside sometimes, but I'm very deep, I'm very emotional, and I allow myself to cry out sometimes. So if you need to on the day, do it, go for it.
That's very good advice. Yeah. Ian will be going, oh God, right. Note to self, pack loads of tissues in the kit bag.
Exactly.
My kit list is endless. Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. I know. And just, just positive vibes for some decent weather as well, because I mean,
I know. Well, as you said, you know, we can't really do much about that. But in spite of, I remember my first ever half Ironman in Snowdonia. It just poured throughout, and those mountain passes going down on the bike, it was terrifying. And I hadn't hit perimenopause yet, so it was second day of my period, and there I was in the rain and swimming in that lake, thinking, well, what am I going to do when I get out of here? You know, for obvious reasons, I'm going to have to.
Well, I know, and I think
afterwards, why was your transition time so long? You know, what do you think? Anyway.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think this is life. And I've done some work with the police as well. And we speak about their annual fitness test that everybody has to do regardless of the job they do. And you know, what if I get my period? And actually, yeah, life unfortunately is like that. That I think it sometimes just waits for that big day and then it will appear. So yeah, I'm fully prepared that could be the case as well. And another, as you say, another opportunity for a big cry.
A really big cry, but also an amazing acknowledgement of how strong we are, how effing strong we are as women, and that we have this, our strength isn't just physical. I know it sounds very physical what you're doing, but you're going to be bringing all of your energies to that event on the 19th and 20th of June. You know, physical, yes, but your emotional self, your mental self, and you've been preparing, and spiritual, your deep sense of being in mission and a sense of purpose, and your why, you know why you're doing this. And you're not just doing this for you, you're not just doing it for the people that you train to you know, as a role model. You're not even just doing it for carers, but you're doing it for women. We're at this exciting place in the world now, where as women, you know, we can be strong, and we can live healthily, and we can navigate these. And just speaking from I mean, I know you're still in perimenopause, and that's a whole other, you're a medical and scientific anomaly, but I'm in postmenopause now. And I have to say, in many respects, I feel stronger than I ever have done, you know, and I'm having to be, given things I'm navigating. But there is an interesting wisdom that comes through, I think, on the other side of this, this journey. First time I'm using the word journey.
No, I know. I think I used the word journey myself actually at some point. But I think I agree with you, and it's almost something to look forward to. I think so many people, it's, you know, it's so good that menopause, perimenopause, the, you know, various stages of that journey are now getting more exposure. But you're right. I think that it's had such a negative connotation, particularly in the UK, and I think there's a lot more Eastern approaches to it. There's a word, is it konenki in Japanese culture, which means like it's a very positive experience. So and there's like a lot of the wording that is used in Eastern countries is around wisdom.
Love it.
And that's they revere women as they go through this stage as sort of like wiser and, you know, have all that kind of knowledge. So I think, yeah, it is something where we think we're living longer. This could be particularly, you know, halfway through our life. We want to make the most of it and not just wither away and into the background and take all those stereotypes of what's we think, you know, or the bad connotations of what the word menopause means. So yes, here's to us, strong women getting stronger.
Absolutely. And you know, Denise, it's been such a fantastic conversation. You've inspired me today. I hope this inspires everyone who listens to this, and those carers as well, those inspiring carers. I just wondered, if are there any key messages, that anything that you just really want to summarize or remind women about strength and what it means to be a strong woman in today's world, even on a
Yeah.
practical level? Anything you want to summarize with before we start?
Yeah, I think it's just to remember, as we've said, the message, hopefully it's coming through the whole conversation, which is that we need to prioritize strength. And I think that's whatever age you are, whatever age of a woman you are, think more about getting in touch with somebody, being more informed about how you should be training. You know, get in touch with me. I
Yeah.
offer some very personalized programs, not just off the shelf programs, doing a really good thing at the moment called the Personal Body Reset, which is about educating women to be their own coaches in a lot of ways. And I think we just need to be more aware of that. And I think it is that big message about what do you want to be fit for? And it's fit for life. And running for an hour and a half or doing body pump classes
Mm,
is not going to get you where you need to be. You need to just prioritize short periods, even and a lot of the times you're prioritizing shorter periods of time to train than
yeah,
you
yeah.
have been doing. So it's taking less time to get better results. And just think about the mental resilience that you get from that, as well as the physical confidence. So yeah, imagine what you could achieve if you knew your own strength, basically.
Wow. I love that. We should probably leave on that note. Imagine what you could achieve if you knew your own strengths. I really like that. I think that's a good note on which we should draw a line under this. It's been an absolute pleasure and inspiration to talk to you today. And good luck on the 19th and 20th of June. I will be thinking of you throughout my 10-hour, 11-hour journey, and I'm allowed to use the word journey in this context, in the sky, as I try and bash out 10,000 steps on British Airways without looking like a mad person.
Here's to that. Right. Send me some positive vibes and I will let you know how it goes, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you.